mobilized on a mass scale. They worked across all conflict lines, all ethnic groups, across the country geographically, and they managed to put in place a quota of 30% in the Constitution. We saw the provincial elections this month in Iraq. More than a third of the candidates that ran are women. They have done it all exactly the way we would want it to be done in terms of promoting a democratic transition. And I think that the proof is in the pudding, that they do things differently, and they have done things differently, and they've won their rights in Iraq in exactly the way we would want them to. And so I think that you see that there is evidence that in the Middle East women would handle things differently and ought to have a voice, because things would be different if they did.
I've seen a little bit of a transition when some of the women who, some were here and went back, ran for office, and I visited them when they first got these offices, and there was very little peaceful conversation between the various ones. But I've seen growth there, and probably more rapidly than what we'd see it if they were just all men talking, because egos are a little bit more guarded, I think, among the male gender.
I think also, I think that's true, and I also think that women, because they bring a broader agenda to the conversation, they find common ground. We work often, we seek always to bring the widest possible spectrum of women together, from the most conservative and religious and traditional to the most extreme on the other side. And what we found is, even though when they come in the room, exactly as you said, they say, I can't find anything to say to this person, I have nothing in common, they come out with a rich agenda of common goals. And they're able to do that. They are able to cross the conflict lines. It doesn't mean they don't disagree. They have the same profound disagreements that others do, that men do. But they can find that common ground, and they can use that common ground to build a platform for peace. Very interesting, when we did work with Sudanese women, the Sudanese women, same reaction. They said, no, we're not going to find anything to do that's in common. They got together as a set of what was called a gender expert support team. They came to the negotiations, developed a common agenda, they were neutral, and that proved to provide a foundation for broader negotiations, because even the men said, oh, this stuff we can agree on, this we can agree on. And it created an opening for dialogue, so that the men who came and said, we have nothing to say, when the women inserted what their principles were, the men said, okay, this we can discuss, this we can see common ground around. And I think that that can create space for negotiations where there may not be space otherwise.
I visited some of the Sudanese women, that very capable women, very well educated, and they were just so fatigued with war, so tired of war. And I just sat there and listened and thought, I know that if they had the opportunity to express this to some of the other leaders, that feeling would be generated among all of them. And that could start some healing and some progress. But I think that it takes time, but we see a little bit of growth there. I remember being in Bahrain when they were writing their constitution, and the questions that the women had that were on that executive committee is, should they wait until a later time to put what they desired in the Constitution? And I said, please don't wait, because the second time around is so difficult. Put it all on the table now. And it has been a fairly smooth working document, I think, there since then.
Well, your advice was good advice, because what we found is that out of destruction comes opportunity as well. And where women have seized the opportunity to say, we need a new constitution, there's a new constitution being drafted, and we want to have our rights reflected in that constitution, generally it has worked. The sooner you get in there, the more you push your agenda early, the more likely it is to succeed.
Well, and the Iraqi women were very straightforward in wanting their percentage in the Constitution. And I think they have reached that goal or exceeded it. I mean, they really are in some very key leadership positions. I email Judge Hackey all the time, back and forth. She keeps her spirit up, been around a very long time.
Yes, she has.
And has offered a great deal to younger people.
Well, it's interesting. She was the first female judge in Iraq, and that was in the 1950s. So there is a real foundation of women's leadership to build on in Iraq,
Yes.
and I'm cautiously optimistic that their leadership will grow.
I've seen some growth, because I remember our first visit and bringing them together. They were divided in these three different voices and felt a real obligation just to hang on to what they had been told and what they'd experienced, but gradually they began to talk to each other. At first they were just talking to people that were coming in, but not directly. But now I think they're communicating much more directly, and I think I see progress there.
That's good.
I believe so sincerely that people having an opportunity to dialogue and really express themselves will build that tolerance, will build that respect for differences, and that's what it takes. It's going to take a long time, but I just want to be a small part of bringing about that culture of peace in the world. I feel good when I work with the people. I see a very, and of course in the U.S. You don't see quite as many people, but we have not had the struggles in other countries where they have been victims of war and parts of war-torn countries for so many years that they just cannot only imagine peace, and they really want to get there. Well, I want to say how much I appreciate the efforts of your organization and the effort to network with all the other organizations, because it takes as many as we can put in this circle to help to get that word out.
Well, thank you very much. Thank you for the opportunity to chat. Thank you very much for your leadership on this agenda. You've been plugging away at this and being a real voice for change for many, many years. I agree with you. I think there is progress. I think the biggest thing we need to do is convince people to do things differently.
Yes.
To bring in these other voices, to try something new. And I've seen slow progress, and I agree with you. I think it will take a while, but I'm eternally optimistic that we will see this kind of change.
You know, just for people to begin to understand there can be change, and have a desire for that change, and kind of get away from those old built-in ideas that have been lingering around a long time, and kind of open the door to some new ideas. And well, I am really proud that the progress has been slow, but you can see that it is taking place, and I'm proud to see all of that, and I'm proud of all the efforts that are being given. And Women Wagering Peace was my second stop when I started, and I was so impressed with the leadership of Ambassador Swanee Hunt, and I continue to admire her so much, and all the women that she's associated with that are so steadfast.
Well, thank you very much, and I think that I would say that it's leaders like you, women leaders who paved the path for other women leaders, that are really critical to success. So I hope you continue to advocate in this direction, and I look forward to working together with you in that task.
Thank you so much.
This has been another edition of Report from Washington featuring Congresswoman Eddie Bernice Johnson. You can reach Congresswoman Johnson at 202-225-8885 or 214-922-8885. You can also contact her through her website at http://www.house.gov/ebjohnson.